On our wedding night, my husband told me he wanted to have a child with his mentor's daughter. When I questioned him, he actually blamed me. Ava, don't raise your voice. I already explained, Professor Grant is gravely ill. His only wish is for Lily to have a child. We're just doing IVF. It's not like anything will actually happen between us. I stared at Ethan. Under the fading festive lights left from the banquet, his face looked unfamiliar, almost foreign. My throat tightened as if something was blocking it. It took me a long time to find my voice. Ethan, say that again. You want to have a child with who? He ran a hand through his hair, impatient, as though I was the one being unreasonable. Ava, keep it down. I told you, it's Lily. Professor Grant is in late-stage lung cancer. The doctors say he might have 6 months left. His only wish is to see Lily have some security, a child. It's just IVF. Nothing physical. Can't you understand that? Understand? A laugh almost escaped me, though my chest felt colder and colder. On our wedding night, my husband tells me he's going to have a child with another woman. And you want me to understand? Ethan, I'm your legal wife. He seized on that, as if he'd caught me in the wrong. Ava, aren't you Professor Grant's student? If it weren't for him funding us back then, how would we have finished school? Now he has one last wish. And you're not willing to repay that? When did you become so cold and selfish? Cold. Selfish. The words stabbed straight through me. He was the one who had pursued me relentlessly, promised he'd treat me well for the rest of our lives. Now he used gratitude as a knife and cold-blooded as a crime, stabbing me on the first night of our marriage. I said nothing more. In moments like this, any explanation was pointless. He had already prepared every line, every accusation. That night, the red candles were still burning. The embroidered wedding quilt lay between us. We slept back to back, separated by an icy gulf. The next day, I carried a basket of fruit to visit Professor Grant at the hospital. Mrs. Grant held my hand, her eyes red, telling me he had just fallen asleep. I comforted her absent-mindedly, my heart weighed down by something heavy. Ethan said he was going to the doctor's office to ask about the treatment plan. When I left the ward, something compelled me to walk toward the fire escape, the quiet corner at the end of the hall. And there, I saw them. My husband, Ethan, and the IVF partner he claimed was nothing more than a medical necessity, Lily, were locked in a deep, intimate kiss. His arm was wrapped tightly around her waist. Her fingers were laced in his hair, their bodies pressed so willingly together, as if they couldn't bear to part. A coldness far deeper than a sleepless night froze me from the inside out. The fruit basket slipped from my numb fingers. Oranges and apples rolled across the floor, making dull thuds. The lovers startled apart. A flicker of panic crossed Ethan's face. Lily quickly hid behind him, her expression flashing briefly with triumph before shifting into a delicate, pitiful look. Ava? What are you doing here? Ethan stepped toward me, trying to explain. Lily she got emotional, and I was trying to comfort her. I glanced at the scattered apples on the floor, bright red against the sterile tiles. They looked exactly like the wedding candies that had rolled across the banquet hall yesterday. How ironic. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I merely raised my head, letting my gaze sweep across them slowly, calmly, finally resting on Ethan. Emotional? So emotional that she needed to be comforted mouth to mouth? My voice was almost unnervingly even. Ethan, your sense of repaying kindness is impressively broad. Without another look at either of them, I turned and walked away. My heels hit the polished hospital floor with crisp, unwavering clarity. Behind me, Ethan called my name in panic, and Lily let out her soft, fake pleas for me to stop. I never turned back. When I got home, Ethan came soon after. He looked guilty, nervous, afraid to speak. Ava, about what happened at the hospital today, I cut him off, forcing a tired, conflicted expression onto my face. Don't say anything. I thought all night, and after seeing Professor Grant's condition, I took a breath, as if making a huge compromise. You're right. We owe him too much not to repay it. Ethan's eyes lit up instantly. He grabbed my hand. You really agree? Ava, I knew you'd understand. I pulled my hand back gently and walked to get a glass of water, hiding the frost in my eyes. But IVF isn't a small matter. We need a written agreement, stating clearly that this is purely a medical arrangement, and that once the child is born, it has no legal connection to us, especially not to me. Every expense and every hospital choice must be approved by me. Of course. Anything you say. Ethan nodded so fast it looked desperate, and I added, we keep this secret. especially from our families and from the company. I don't want gossip hurting our reputation. Tell Lily to keep her mouth shut too. I know. I'll talk to her. He would have agreed to anything in that moment. And so, I began my performance, playing the understanding, even supportive wife. I personally called the most reputable reproductive center in the city to schedule a consultation. At the hospital, I looped my arm through Ethan's and smiled warmly at Lily. Don't be nervous, Lily. Modern medicine is amazing. We'll help Professor Grant fulfill his wish. Lily looked at me with a complicated expression, part curiosity, part suspicion, and yes, a hint of smugness. She thought I had surrendered, that I had given in to moral pressure, that she and Ethan's love had forced me to bow my head. During the consultation, I asked the most questions, took the most notes, and appeared the most invested. I even offered, for the best chance of success, you both need full medical checkups. I'll cover the costs. I looked at Ethan with a gentle smile. Right, honey? We want a healthy baby, don't we? Ethan agreed immediately. Lily looked uneasy at some of the more invasive tests, but with Ethan's persuasion and the banner of doing it for the child, she reluctantly agreed. Those test results would later become part of the evidence. Meanwhile, I contacted a divorce attorney known in the industry for her sharp methods, Ms. Parker. In my study, I calmly laid out everything that had happened. Ms. Parker, my goal is simple. I want him to leave with nothing, and I want him to pay for what he's done. Ms. Parker adjusted her glasses, her tone professional and incisive. Ms. Ava, you've done very well so far. The negotiation over the IVF agreement, the hospital consultation records, these are strong supplementary pieces of evidence that show their intentions were not pure. Next, we need something more substantial, proof of an actual extramarital relationship, and, if possible, evidence that they intended to harm your legal property rights. For example, transferring marital assets. The opportunity came sooner than expected. One night, Ethan was working late in the study. When I brought him a glass of milk, I heard his voice, low, secretive, through the half-closed door. Lily, don't worry. Once she gets pregnant and my mentor feels at peace, I'll tell Ava everything. The shares she has, I have a way to make her give them up. She's been so understanding lately. She might even hand them over herself, quietly. I set the milk down and walked away without a sound. So it wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. He wanted to use my understanding as leverage, to strip away everything that belonged to me. My heart froze into solid ice. I doubled down on my kindness toward Lily, inviting her out for shopping, tea, relaxing before IVF. She was wary at first, but under my flawless performance and fake sisterly warmth, her guard gradually fell. One afternoon, she went to the restroom while her phone lay on the table, lit up, unlocked. My heartbeat quickened. Opportunity only knocks once. I picked it up, opened her chat with Ethan, and took rapid photos with my own phone, messages full of flirtation, secret plans, and detailed discussions on how to make me voluntarily surrender my assets. By the time she returned, her phone was back exactly where she left it, and I was calmly stirring my latte. Another piece of evidence secured. I chose Lily's birthday as the perfect moment. Ethan told me he had to work late on an urgent project. I watched him carefully choose a tie and spray on that cologne he only used for special occasions. I almost laughed. Don't work too hard, I said gently, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle on his collar. His eyes flickered, guilt flashing for a second. Then he rushed out the door. The moment it closed, I picked up my phone and dialed. They just left. Their destination is Moonlight Steakhouse. Proceed as planned. On the other end was Zoe, my best friend and the queen of our social circle. Fierce, sharp-tongued, fearless, exactly the person I needed. Don't worry, she said, excitement barely contained. The photographer is in place. Our audience is ready too. Get your popcorn. Moonlight Steakhouse glowed with soft, romantic lighting. I sat in a private booth with a clear view of the table Ethan had reserved. There they were. Ethan leaned close, placing a delicate silver necklace around Lily's neck. She beamed sweetly and kissed his cheek. Such tenderness, such affection, nothing like the pure-hearted gratitude they preached. I lifted my water glass, fingers tightening slightly. Inside, though, I felt nothing, only the calm that comes before executing a plan. 30 minutes later, Zoe walked in with two of our mutual friends. Their seats were conveniently arranged right next to Ethan and Lily. At first, the cheaters didn't notice. Then, Zoe raised her voice dramatically. Wait, Ethan? Didn't you say you were working all night on a deadline? How come you're here? Ethan froze. Slowly. He turned, dread spreading across his face. Lily's fork clattered. She jerked her hand from his as if burned. And this is Lily, right? Zoe continued. Sweet but sharp. Wow. I didn't know work required feeding each other steak. Or holding hands. Is this a new team-building exercise? Restaurant chatter died instantly. People stared. Zoe. It's not what you think, Ethan stammered. Not what I think? Zoe scoffed, pulling out her phone and showing the photos I'd taken of their hospital kiss. Is this also not what I think? Ethan. You and Ava just got married a few days ago. Professor Grant is still in the hospital. And you two are sneaking around in a fancy restaurant? That's not true. We were just, Lily's voice shook as she clung to Ethan. And your IVF story? Zoe continued, voice icy. You use it to guilt trip Ava into agreeing to help Professor Grant, and then the moment she loosens her guard, you two go on secret dates? Is this your idea of gratitude? Stop talking! Ethan lunged for the phone, but our friends blocked him easily. Zoe pressed on, louder, everyone. Take a look! This is the man who cheated days after his wedding, and with his mentor's daughter. And this Miss Lily, used kindness as a mask to play the victim while stealing someone's husband. The restaurant was buzzing, whispers, judgment, disgusted looks. Ethan's face turned the color of ash. Lily covered her face, sobbing. When I saw Ethan on the brink of collapsing, I finally stood up. The moment they noticed me, both fell silent. I approached them slowly, my expression calm, too calm. No rage, no hurt, just finality. Is the show over? I asked softly. Ava. Ethan tried to reach for me. I raised a hand and stopped him. From my bag, I took out the drafted IVF agreement, the one he had already signed. I ripped it cleanly in front of him and dropped the pieces into the trash bin. Ethan, I said, my voice crisp and cold. You'll receive the divorce papers from my lawyer soon. I didn't look at him again, or at Lily, who had gone pale. I nodded to Zoe and the others, then walked out of the restaurant with my back straight and my steps steady, leaving behind the chaos, the whispers, and Ethan's furious shouts mixed with Lily's messy sobs. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. Leaving the restaurant, I sat in my car. Only then did the calm mask I had worn begin to loosen slightly. My hands on the steering wheel trembled, not from fear, but from the tension of a general who had just completed the first phase of a war. I took a deep breath and immediately called MS. Parker. MS. Parker. There's been a public confrontation. I'm worried Ethan might try to transfer assets out of panic. We need to apply for property preservation immediately. Her tone turned sharp, focused. Understood. MS. Ava. You did the right thing. Please send all evidence you have, photos, screenshots, recordings. Also, I need a complete list of the bank accounts, stock accounts, real estate, vehicles under both your and Ethan's names, as well as your company registration and shareholder structure. I'll draft the petition tonight and file for pre-litigation property preservation first thing tomorrow. Okay, I'll handle it right away. When I returned home, the place that had once been decorated for our newlywed joy now felt cold and hollow. I sat down at my desk, switched on my computer, and transformed myself into a machine of pure efficiency. Bank statements, shareholding certificates, property deeds, vehicle registrations, one document after another, scanned and categorized. I compressed my evidence files, photos of their kiss, chat logs of their schemes, and sent everything to MS. Parker. She worked through the night. By the afternoon of the next day, she called. Ava. The court has issued the ruling. We've won. Her voice carried a rare hint of triumph. All bank accounts and investment accounts under both your names have been frozen. Your jointly owned properties and vehicles have been sealed, no transfers permitted. Most importantly, your company shares are now under preservation as well. Ethan cannot make any changes, cannot sell, cannot withdraw anything. The speed was breathtaking. I could almost picture Ethan's face when he found out. Sure enough, within 30 minutes, my phone exploded with calls from him. I let it ring over and over, until the 15th call, when I finally answered slowly. Ava, what the hell did you do? His voice was frantic, almost hysterical. All my accounts are frozen. The company accounts too. Even my car won't start, it's locked. Did you do this? I spoke calmly, almost bored. Ethan, watch your tone. I'm simply defending my legal rights as your wife. After all, who knows if you'd use our marital assets to support your little Lily? You're pushing me too far. He was nearly screaming. You need to go to the court and undo this. Do you know how much trouble this is causing for the company? You'll destroy everything we built. We? I let out a soft laugh. The moment you kissed Lily in that hospital hallway, there was no we. Most of the company's work was done by me. I reached out to the other shareholders. They'll cover your responsibilities temporarily. I paused. You should focus on preparing for the divorce trial. Ava, don't go too far. You think you can ruin me? I won't let you. Professor Grant, don't mention him. My voice turned ice cold. You have no right to speak his name. And if you dare upset him or Mrs. Grant again, I'll make sure Lily and her mother learn exactly what kind of man you are. There was a moment of silence on his end, just shaky breathing. Then he hung up abruptly. The next afternoon, my phone rang. Mrs. Grant flashed across the screen. My heart sank slightly. It was inevitable she would call. I steadied my breath and picked up. Hello, Mrs. Grant. Her voice was trembling, exhausted, filled with shame and pleading. Ava, it's me. I heard some things. She sniffled, clearly holding back tears. Ethan and Lily, they were being foolish. They made a terrible mistake. But Ava, your mentor, he can't handle any more stress. He's so weak now. She paused, gathering courage. Ethan said you froze all the accounts, that you're going to sue him. Ava, for the sake of your mentor, could you please give them another chance? At least let him leave this world peacefully. Her words wrapped around me like thin, heavy ropes, soft, but meant to bind. I could practically imagine Ethan's performance in front of her, turning betrayal into a misunderstanding, turning my legal self-protection into cruelty, turning himself into the victim. I waited until her sobbing quieted, then spoke, calm and clear. Mrs. Grant, I said gently, please don't worry, and please take care of yourself first. But there are some things Ethan didn't tell you. I inhaled slowly, making every word steady and sharp. First, it was Ethan who, on our wedding night, said he wanted a child with Lily. Silence on her end. Second, after I agreed to the IVF and actively arranged everything, I found them kissing in the hospital hallway. I have photos. Nothing but a faint gasp came from her now. Third, and most importantly, Ethan promised Lily that once she got pregnant, he'd force me to divorce him and make me surrender all my assets, including the company I built with him. I have their messages, their plans, everything. A choked breath traveled through the phone. This wasn't a moment of weakness. Mrs. Grant, I continued quietly. It was a calculated betrayal. They weren't just hurting our marriage, they were targeting everything I own. I softened my voice, but not my stance. I respect Professor Grant deeply. I always will. Because of that, I'm willing to keep the ugliest evidence private so he can rest peacefully. But that doesn't mean I will forgive Ethan. And it certainly doesn't mean I'll stop holding him accountable. Silence stretched long on the line, heavy, stunned. Finally, Mrs. Grant whispered, voice shaking, Ava. I understand now. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. I'll make sure they don't disturb you again, and I'll take care of him. Thank you, Mrs. Grant. Please rest well. I hung up. That night, the doorbell rang violently, followed by heavy pounding. Ethan's drunken yelling echoed through the hallway. Ava, open the door. I know you're in there. Get out here and talk to me. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I checked the live feed from my security camera, confirming he was alone and clearly drunk. Then I called building security. This is the resident of Unit X. A drunk man is pounding on my door, shouting threats. I believe he may become violent. Please send security immediately, and I will be calling the police as well. Only after doing all that did I walk to the door. I kept the chain lock on and cracked it open slightly. Through the gap, I saw Ethan's flushed, distorted face, twisted by alcohol and anger. Ava, you witch! He shoved the door, but the chain held. The stench of alcohol hit me like a wall. You want to burn everything down? Freeze the accounts? Hire lawyers? Ruin me? I won't let you, Ethan. You're drunk, and you're making a scene. My voice came out cold as steel. Making a scene? You made me do this. He slammed the door with his fist. I gave you the best years of my life. I gave everything to this home. Professor Grant is sick, and I only wanted to help, yet you want to destroy me? Is your heart made of stone? There it was again, the same twisted rhetoric, the same moral manipulation. My stone heart? I said quietly. Is that what you call you cheating with Lily and planning to steal my assets? Ethan, save your lies for court. Court? He shouted. I'm not talking to a judge, I'm talking to you. Go withdraw that petition. Undo the freezing order. Or I swear I'll make you miserable. Oh. I tilted my head. And how exactly will you do that? With drunken threats? Door pounding? Or are you planning to escalate further? Behind him, I saw movement in the security camera feed, 2 guards and a police officer stepping off the elevator. Perfect timing. You think you've won? Ethan screamed, spitting his words. I promise you, Ava, if I go down, you go with, sir. A stern voice cut him off. Ethan spun around. Security and the officer were standing right behind him. Instant sobriety flickered across his face. I opened the door fully, still calm and composed. Officer, I said clearly, this is him, my soon-to-be ex-husband. He's drunk, pounding my door, and threatening me. My security camera has everything recorded. I can provide it if needed. Ethan's bravado evaporated instantly. Officer, I wasn't threatening her. We just have marital issues. I drank a little. That's all. Marital issues do not justify harassment or threats. The officer said firmly. Sir, please provide your ID. You need to calm down and leave. If this happens again, we will take further action. Security stepped forward to escort him. Ethan shot me a venomous glare, but under the officer's watchful eyes, he couldn't do anything except stumble toward the elevator. Thank you, I said to the officer and security. Then I closed the door. Inside, the silence was peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. Another confrontation won. Another piece of evidence secured. On the day of the divorce hearing, I wore a sharply tailored dark suit, Ms. Parker's recommendation. Light makeup, calm expression, every step steady and measured. Ms. Parker walked beside me, her briefcase filled with meticulously prepared evidence. When we entered the courtroom, Ethan was already seated at the defendant's table. He looked thinner, paler, his eyes carrying a desperate sharpness. Beside him sat a seasoned-looking male attorney. He wasn't planning to go down quietly. The judge entered, and proceedings began. Ms. Parker spoke first, clear, professional, and cutting. Your Honor, my client requests the dissolution of the marriage. The defendant engaged in serious marital misconduct, infidelity, manipulation, and attempts to coerce the plaintiff into forfeiting marital property. We therefore request the court grant the divorce, divide assets favoring the plaintiff, and order the defendant to leave with minimal or no marital assets, as provided under the law when one party is at severe fault. Then it was Ethan's attorney's turn. He rose slowly, voice calm and practiced. Your Honor, we acknowledge that the relationship has broken down and agree divorce is appropriate. However, we object to the plaintiff's extreme demands for asset division. He adjusted his tie, continuing, regarding the alleged infidelity. My client and Ms. Lily Grant initially discussed IVF solely out of compassion for a dying mentor. Morally questionable, perhaps, but not legally equivalent to cohabitation or bigamy. The photos provided only show a moment of intimacy, not proof of a long-term affair. Ethan straightened a bit, as if gaining confidence. Furthermore, the lawyer pressed on. The plaintiff's accusation of asset transfer is pure speculation. Certain private conversations may have been emotional or exaggerated, but no actual transfer occurred. All marital property, especially company shares, remains under both names. No real damage was done. Ms. Parker immediately stood. Your Honor, opposing counsel is deliberately narrowing the definition of fault. The law is clear that severe harm to the marital relationship, including emotional betrayal and malicious intent, constitutes major fault. The defendant lied, manipulated, and carried on an intimate relationship during the marriage. We have chat logs detailing explicit plans to trick the plaintiff into relinquishing her property. That alone demonstrates malicious intent. She opened a binder and placed several documents before the judge. Additionally, the defendant harassed and threatened the plaintiff while intoxicated. We have police records and video evidence. Ethan's lawyer stepped forward again. Even if fault exists, the plaintiff's request for leaving with nothing is disproportionate. The company was built by both parties. My client contributed equally. Stripping him of all assets violates the principle of fairness. The courtroom air thickened with tension. Then Ethan suddenly raised his hand. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge allowed it. Ethan turned toward me, eyes glistening with manufactured sorrow. Ava, he rasped. I know I did wrong. I'm sorry, truly, but with Lily, I was confused. I made a mistake. But we built everything together. We struggled through so much. Do you really want me to walk away with nothing? Is one moment of failure enough to erase all our years together? His voice shook, perfectly timed, perfectly pathetic. He knew exactly how to perform. He even choked up, saying, Ava, I beg you, don't destroy everything we built. Don't take the company from me. I'll accept less, but not nothing. That company is half my life. The judge looked at me. I met Ethan's gaze without blinking. Then I spoke, voice calm, but razor sharp. Ethan, stop performing. This wasn't a momentary mistake. From our wedding night to the hospital kiss to your scheme to steal my assets, every step was intentional. You betrayed me, lied to me, and planned to strip me of the company I built with my own hands. I leaned forward slightly. You talk about everything we built? I protected the company. You tried to use it to destroy me. I shook my head. You left yourself no middle ground. The court will decide what's fair. Ethan's face drained of color. His attorney avoided eye contact. The judge nodded, then adjourned the session to deliberate. When we walked out of court, sunlight hit my face, warm, steady, cleansing. The judgment wasn't out yet, but I already knew, legally, morally, and strategically, I had already won. Less than a week after the hearing, the court's written judgment arrived. Ms. Parker personally came to my office to deliver it. Her professional smile carried a subtle hint of satisfaction. Ava, the result is even better than we anticipated. She handed me the document. The court has granted the divorce. It has also determined that Ethan bears major fault in the breakdown of the marriage. Therefore, under the relevant provisions of the Civil Code, the division of marital property is made in your favor. Here is the breakdown. I skimmed through the judgment. Ethan was left with almost nothing, aside from his personal belongings and an old car. He had lost nearly all marital property due to his misconduct and malicious intent. He had gambled on sympathy, on performance, on twisting the narrative. But in the face of the evidence I provided, everything collapsed. Will he appeal? I asked lightly. Ms. Parker tapped her pen against her folder. He could in theory, but with such clear facts and proper legal reasoning, the chances of a higher court overturning this decision are extremely slim, and appealing requires fees, something he's short on now, given the preservation orders. She paused. Realistically, Ava, he can't afford to fight anymore. The rational choice for him is to accept the verdict. I nodded. Rationality had never been Ethan's strength, but necessity would force his hand. Months passed. My newly founded design studio officially opened. It wasn't far from the company I had built, but the environment was elegant, calm, and wholly my own. Every corner, every detail reflected my taste, my effort, my independence. Clients, friends, and industry colleagues came to the opening night. Zoe was buzzing around energetically, proud and loud as always. I held a glass of champagne, mingling with several partners. When I glanced out the floor-to-ceiling windows, across the street, a familiar figure flashed by. Ethan. His steps were hurried, shoulders slumped, head down. He moved like someone carrying invisible weights. He disappeared into the crowd just as quickly. I felt nothing. He was simply another passerby now, one with no connection to my world. What are you looking at? Zoe slid in beside me, playful. Nothing, I said, smiling. I raised my glass toward her. For new beginnings. For your new beginning. Zoe clinked her glass against mine, eyes shining. At that moment, a senior media figure I admired, Nathan Brooks, a respected industry veteran, approached with a warm smile. Late 30s, refined, calm, with a quiet confidence that drew attention without effort. Congratulations, Ava. The studio looks stunning. Your design work always has a unique voice. You're too kind, Nathan. I'm honored you came, I replied, meeting his toast. We had interacted at industry events before, but only in passing. He was divorced, dedicated to his work and philanthropic projects. With an impeccable reputation, we spoke about design trends, upcoming projects, and creative philosophy. The conversation was effortless, equal, respectful, illuminating. At the end of the night, he said, Ava, our group has a new project starting next week. I think you'd be perfect for it. Would you be interested in joining the meeting? I'd like your input. I'd love to. Thank you for thinking of me. I offered my new business card. He exchanged his own, smiling gently. Let's stay in touch. After seeing off the last guests, the studio finally fell quiet. The sunset painted the room in warm gold. I stood alone by the window, holding Nathan's card. The cardstock was thick, elegant, like a small promise of possibilities. The betrayal, the marriage, the court battles. They all felt far away now, like a past life. They hadn't broken me. They had forged me. I was no longer the woman who sobbed in silence on her wedding night. I was the woman who rebuilt her life, piece by piece, with clarity, dignity, and strength. The future might bring new challenges, or new chances, maybe even something unexpected, a kindness that wasn't laced with lies. Whatever awaited me, I was ready. I exhaled slowly. A smile touched my lips. My world was, at last, open, bright, wide as the sky. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.